I felt this agonizing pain, and then all of a sudden I'm just lifting right up out of my body. There was this huge, loving, formless presence that appeared. I felt so loved and so protected. I've never felt love like that before. And we started moving very quickly. We're in this beautiful garden. The sky was blue. The flowers, the colors were just brilliant. There were colors I had no name for. It was magnificent. What I saw were people dressed in beautiful dresses, and there was a piano in the corner, and he was playing music, and there were flowers and candelabras, and I mean, it was just very beautiful. And there was a beautiful, what I call a glorious city. I could hear people talking. I heard music playing. You could tell even now, I'm speechless when I talk about it. It's just like, oh my gosh. Sometimes it blows me away. In 2005, I was sitting outside talking on a cordless phone. It started raining. I heard this loud crack and I saw the lightning. And as soon as I saw it, it hit my right arm. It went through my body, left char marks on the concrete steps where I had been sitting. I mean, I felt this burning, searing. It was just horrible, this agonizing pain. And then all of a sudden, I'm just lifting right up out of my body and just peeling up out of me like a banana. And as soon as I come out of myself, I feel nothing. I feel no pain at all. It was like, wow, I don't hurt anymore. This is so cool. But at that particular moment, I didn't know I was dead, even though I could see myself laying there. It didn't register in my mind. And I think it was because it happened so quick, but I didn't have time to think. I go up the stairs and I'm in my house, and I'm looking around my house, and everything had a burnt gold look to it. And I'm looking at the, straight ahead, and I see the curtains on my kitchen window, and they're not my curtains. I mean, I was confused. I couldn't think what's going on. So I went into the dining room and I looked around, and nothing in there was mine. So I went into the living room, and none of that furniture was mine. And then I heard this old time radio show playing. It sounded like something from the Waltons, like the 20s or 30s. And I never had a radio that played anything like that. And I couldn't figure out where that noise was coming from. And I was looking, and there were no people in my house. My family wasn't in my house. And and I couldn't figure out what in the world was going on. And I started to panic. And when I started to totally lose it, there was this huge, loving, formless presence that appeared. And I felt so loved and so protected. I've never felt love like that before, ever. In my 62 years, I have never felt anything like that. And it was just this being, even though I knew who he was, and it was God, but he was formless. And I'm calling him a he because later on he appeared as a he. This presence was just huge. And there was nothing. It was just pure love. It just totally engulfed me. And we started moving very quickly. But we didn't move up or down. We moved sideways. And we were going through these beautiful pink and gold clouds. It wasn't storming anymore, I guess. There was just beautiful pink and gold clouds. It was gorgeous. Finally, we got to the end of these pink and gold clouds, and here we just were in this beautiful garden, or just at the entrance of this beautiful garden. And I'm looking around, and everything was so gorgeous. And it felt like the most beautiful spring day. And if you multiply that by 10 bazillion, that's what it was. I mean, perfect temperature, no humidity, the sky was blue. The flowers, the colors were just brilliant. There were colors I had no name for. And I heard birds singing, and it was magnificent. But that was just like in the first 2 minutes. being there. I could see all of this stuff. And it was just, wow, you know. And then these two young men stepped forward and they were in these this cream colored linen. It was a linen clothing and they were glowing and they were just beautiful. And they were probably between late 20s, early 30s. And they had curly hair, um, longer curly, darker curly hair than mine, but it had this color running through it. At first, I thought they were angels, and then it hit me as soon as they smiled. It was like, oh my God, I know who you are. I looked over my two brothers who had died when when they were babies, but they were fully grown and they looked exactly like my dad when my dad was a young man. It was like, oh my gosh, it's you. And so we had this wonderful family reunion and it was absolutely magnificent. And I kept telling him, Dad would be so proud of you. He would be so happy. Stephen was on one side of me and Michael was on the other. And this presence moved from, beside me to behind me. And so we were all together and we moved in deeper into this garden. And that's why I could hear music playing. I heard the sound of music. It was like everything had a vibration. The leaves had a certain vibration. The grass had a different vibration. There was a stream, and it was gorgeous. It just sparkled like a million diamonds in the light. And that water, as it was going over the rocks, the water had a vibration. The rocks had a different vibration. The trees, the birds, the colors, each color had a vibration. So when you put everything together, each of those vibrations, it sounded like a beautiful orchestra, stringed instruments and drums and horns, and it was so beautiful. I was like, oh my gosh. And everything was singing praises to God. It was just so beautiful. As we were walking through, my brothers were, still with me, and that presence was there. And my brothers actually had to tell me that I had died. I did not know. When my brothers told me I had died, I was like, if this is death, I can do it. This is okay. I see people walking around. I see my brothers. Everybody has a body. Everybody looks great. Everybody's glowing. And I thought, okay, if I'm dead, do I still have a body? So I looked down the front of me to see if I had a body. And my hair was going down the front of me. I could see my clothes. I could see my feet touching the grass. I could feel the grass. So I had all my senses. My senses were so heightened. I was so aware of everything. It was a better version of me. And I was glowing just like everybody else. And it was like, wow, this is cool. Actually, I felt loved. Accepted. I wasn't worried about my hair or my clothes or my makeup or anything like that. I didn't even think about that. I just felt total love and total peace and total contentment and acceptance and all of that. I just love like I've never been loved before. And there was a beautiful, what I call a glorious city. And it was off in the distance. And there's a big wall, a golden wall that surrounded the city. And I could see as if I was right up on the city, but I wasn't. I was like in the garden, but it was like I could see very, very minute detail from very far away. There was a lot of buildings on the outskirts of the city that I could see. I could see what looked like a spiritual hospital, like for people like me who died really quick, had no clue what was going on. I had my brothers there to tell me what had happened. I didn't, there's people out there that may not have anyone to tell them what, they died very quick, very tragically, and they have no idea. So they go to this place and there's mentors and teachers and people. It's not like a hospital, not a physical hospital, but a spiritual hospital where people can tell you and can gently bring you to the awareness that, hey, you're dead. You're here now. We're going to help you, teach you what you need to know. So heaven's a very gentle place. I saw a place where children, babies, I could see it looked like Toys R Us on steroids. I mean, it was huge. It was, I mean, all these children of various ages and stages, and they're all running around and playing and jumping and swinging and all. I mean, you name it, and they're doing it. And there's, adults there. There's, I don't know. There's people everywhere in this beautiful place where these babies and children were. So I learned that the children, they will physically and spiritually grow up to a certain age, and then it goes to spiritual growth. And when older people die, they go back down to a certain age. So everybody there is between 25 and 35 or whatever. It's, everyone there's young. There's no one that I saw was over the age of 35 or whatever. I mean, they were all young and all strong and all healthy, and everybody was glowing and everybody had a body, and it was just beautiful. My brothers took me to this one gorgeous banquet hall, and there was food, but it's not like we don't need food to sustain life. We can have food because it brings us joy. And when we're here on earth, we gather with friends and family around food. That's apparently what we do in heaven too. You can, if it brings you joy, to gather with friends and family and you eat food. What I saw were people dressed in beautiful dresses, and there was a piano in the corner, and he was playing music, and there were flowers and candelabras, and I mean, it was just very beautiful, very ornate, like a formal party of some sort. I don't know who the party was for, but we stood in the doorway and I was like, I want to go in. This is so cool because everything was so earth-like and yet so much better. I don't know how to put it. As I'm looking at some of these buildings and I'm thinking about this stuff, it was time for my life review. So we're walking through the garden and I'm paying attention to everything all at once. We're standing there, and it's my two brothers, me, and then this presence behind me, and there's a screen. It's like watching a screen coming down. And so we're standing there, and there's this movie, a black and white movie of my life from the time I was a baby or the time I was born until the day or that moment that I died on the back steps. Well, it already seemed like I'd been in heaven forever. I mean, I could have only been there for a couple minutes, but it seemed like I was there for weeks and weeks and weeks. I'm watching this life review and it goes, I'm seeing everything, but I don't have any feeling about it at all. There I am, a baby. Here I am, a teenager. Here I am. Okay, bye. It's over. I didn't judge myself. I didn't point out things that I should have done better or didn't do or whatever. I just watched it and that was it, and it was over. And I felt love. And just before this was going on, there was a whole bunch of people that gathered around, like for support, and they were from all different time periods. I noticed the women were wearing beautiful dresses, and some of the men were wearing, old-fashioned fancy suits, and some of the people were wearing modern-day clothes. But it looked like people from different time periods, and they knew me, and I knew that I knew them, but I just didn't know where I knew them from. I couldn't remember where did I know you? It was that kind of thing. But everybody was just there. They were smiling. They were loving me. They were not judging me. And this presence behind me was not judging me either. And that's when I learned that this presence, who is God, did not judge me. I didn't judge me. Nobody else judged me. And so it was just over. That's it. I was like, yay, let's move on. But I did hear a male voice say, what you put into the universe will come back to you. So I don't know if that was the lesson I was supposed to pick up from watching that. And I was like, I never heard words like that. I never had at that point. It was like, oh, what is that supposed to mean? Then I started feeling like I was hooked up to this giant IV bottle of knowledge. It was like, wow. And it was like I was getting all these answers to questions that I couldn't even put into words. I couldn't even voice them before I was getting the answers. And I was just blissfully happy. I learned that God was not complicated, that we human beings complicate him, and he's not complicated. I learned that he is genderless, he is formless, he is spirit, he is total love. But if he chooses to take form, he can, because he's creator of everything. So if he can do anything. He's limitless. He can do anything. So if he wants to take form, he can, and he did. I had seen Jesus. Jesus walked out of a grove of trees, and he came over to me, and he took me over to this wooded glen. And there was a log laying down on the ground, and I sat down on the log. And when I did, Jesus walked away. And there was this man sitting on the log, on the other end of the log. And I knew right away that was God. It had the same feeling of that huge, loving presence behind me. And so he said to me, what would you do if it was just me and you? And I said, what? And he said, what would you do if it was just me and you? I didn't know what he meant by that. He said, well, come with me. So we get up and we walk further into the wooded glen, and there's a clearing. And so he kind of waves his hand, and when he does, he opens up the sky. And I could see the vastness of the universe. I saw the stars and the planets and the gases in the sky. And I was just like, wow, this is huge. But there wasn't anything in it. There were no people, no houses, no cars, no nothing. And I thought, if it's all of that and just me and you, I told him, I said, after the first 10 minutes, you would not like me because with all my questions and my chatter. And, you just wouldn't like me. And he threw his head back and he started laughing. And his eyes were sparkly. And it was so funny because when he started laughing, I realized what I had said. And then I started laughing at myself. I thought, what a dummy. Who says that? So we went back and we sat back down on the log, and he asked me again, what would you do if it was just me and you? And so there was this beautiful, very old oak tree in front of me. And I was looking at the detail of the bark, and I could see the root system and how it was pulling nutrients from the ground, and it was going up into the tree, and it was feeding the leaves. You could see what the leaves were doing and how the leaves were cleaning the air and how we breathe the air. It was like how every part of that tree was important. The life of that tree was important to everything around it. Important to us. We breathe the air, it cleans the air, that kind of thing. Everything is dependent upon everything else. And there's no mistakes. Nothing is a mistake. I looked at God and I said, God, you made this tree. You're in this tree. And when I see this tree, I see you. He said, yes, that's right. So then I started thinking about my parents, and I said, God, you made my parents. You are in my parents. So when I see my parents, I see you. And he said, yes, that's right. Then I started thinking about my children, and I said the same thing, and he said, yes, that's right. Well, then I started thinking about this this person that had hurt me very deeply in my life. And I said, God, there are people in this world that hurt other people. And I said, I don't like them very well, but you made them and you are in them. So when I look at them, I see you. And he said, that's right. And then he said to me, he said, I have a question for you. And I said, okay. And he said, when you look at the mirror, what do you see? And well, my first thought was not much. I thought, oh my gosh, that's not a good answer. You don't tell God, the creator of everything, that he made something that wasn't much. You know, just don't do that. That's mean. So I didn't know what to say really. So I kind of went along with the same lines as I did with everything else. I said, well, God, you made me, you're in me. So when I look in the mirror, I see you. And he was so happy. Yeah, that's right. And basically, what he said to me was, I don't make mistakes. I don't make junk. You are not everything that everybody tells you you are. You are what I tell you you are. You are beautiful. I have been told all my adult life that I was ugly, that I was stupid, that I was a worthless person, and all this kind of stuff. And so I was believing it. I actually think that, because I was hit by lightning not just once, I was hit 4 times, and it was the last lightning bolt that that took me out. And I think that it was God trying to say, hey, I'm trying to talk to you. And I think he was trying to tell me all along not to listen to that kind of stuff. But I wasn't paying attention. And so he kept turning up the volume until I was standing in front of him. And then he proceeded to tell me about beauty is not out here. We are not our physical bodies. We are what's in here. And this is eternal. This physical part is not eternal. And everybody's body is going to fade. Everybody's body is going to, we're all going to die. Our physical body, we are not our physical bodies. He was telling me all of this. And he said, don't listen to those people. Don't listen to the world. Listen to me. It's his opinion is what matters, not everybody else's opinion. During that NDE, I had a bowel blockage and I had surgery, and I had aspirated on the breathing tube during the surgery, and I left my body and I hovered over the table and I could see what they were doing, and it was like, ew. This is not what I want to see. So I kind of went up in the corner of the room, and it was like I was sitting in a chair. There was no chair, but I was sitting in a sitting position in the corner of the room. I could still see, and it was like, I don't want to see this. And there was this like upside down whirlpool thing that like was in the ceiling. And I just went right up through that. And then I was standing next to the golden wall that surrounded the city. The wall was so huge, so tall. It was like pure gold cinder blocks, one on top of the other. And it was so huge. You couldn't get through it if you wanted to. You couldn't jump it. I tried. But it didn't dawn on me just to walk a couple feet down to my, let's see, to my left, and the gates were open. And I could hear people talking. I heard music playing. I heard dishes clanging. It sounded like they were getting ready for a party. There's this meadow in front of me, okay, and I'm standing at the wall. The gates are open. There's this meadow of tall grass, and in this grass there was just these wildflowers everywhere. They were so pretty. And once again, I could that light, the sky was blue. It was like the sun was shining, but there really wasn't a sun in the sky. Everything was lit up. It was just magnificent. I could feel that love and that peace, but it was a little different this time because I didn't have that being with me. But yet I knew that being was there. But there was this little brown and white beagle puppy that was jumping at my feet, and he wanted me to play with him. So I knelt down and I was actually interacting with this little puppy. I was rubbing his tummy and I was playing with him. And every time I tried to stand up, he would start jumping at me. So I was kneeling down and playing with him. And I looked across, I could see, across the meadow, way in the distance was the garden where I had been before. And there were people just pouring out of it. I mean, there were families coming out of it. There were hundreds of people all coming out of that same place where I had been before. So, but anyway, all these people are walking through this, out of the garden and through the meadow. And it was very clear. I saw two Middle Eastern men, and they had the long white robes on, and they had the white things on their head. And the two of them, they were young, and the two of them were just looking at each other, and they were talking and laughing. Everybody that I saw, it was, you have the people, and then behind the person, there was an angel. All the angels looked exactly the same. They were taller and more illuminated than the people were. They wore white robes and they had like a blue sash. They came out of the garden with their angels, and these two men, they walked right past me, and I noticed them, and I thought they looked very handsome, and they were smiling. They just were, very happy, and they walked right into the city. And then there was a man who, I don't know why, I think he was like a telephone worker or a construction worker from New York. I don't know what made me think that, but he still had his hard hat on, and he still had a tool belt or a vest that had tools stuck down in the vest. And he walked past me and he went into the city. And that, like I said, there were many more, but there were certain people that stood out. Then there was this younger man who was escorting an older gentleman. I recognized the younger of the two from some pictures that a friend had showed me. It was her son who had died years ago. And he was escorting this older gentleman into the city when they walked right up to me. And I looked at him and I said, "Oh my gosh, I know you." And so he smiled at me, and this was his dad, and he took his dad and he walked him into the city. I was just like, I was excited that I saw somebody that I knew. So I got back into my body, okay, and I'm in recovery. I still have a breathing machine on. When the nurse, it was a male nurse, when he realized that I was, moving or whatever, he unhooked the breathing machine. And so I'm laying there and I'm thinking to myself, what just happened? Because again, I felt like I was there forever, and everything was so brilliant and so beautiful, and the colors. And then I'm back here. It wasn't like I had a choice in the matter. There was no conversations about whether I was to stay or go and any of my NDEs. It was just like, this happened, and then you're going back. Well, when I got back into my room after I was in recovery for a while, I went back into my room and I got on my phone, and there was a message. The lady, the mother of the young man that I saw, her husband had died that day while I was in surgery. And I said, I know, because I saw her son with him and they went into the city. So that was just like huge. I was, oh my God, you could tell even now. I'm speechless when I talk about it. It's just like, oh my gosh. Sometimes it blows me away because I didn't know this older man. I knew the younger guy and I knew the mother. But when I saw him, I mean, I had no idea. And then I got the message that he had died. I'm like, oh no. But later that evening, my daughter came to visit me at the hospital, and I told her what happened, this whole story. And I told her about the little cute little fat roly poly beagle puppy. And she told me, she said, Mom, we had to call the police because there was a neighbor down the street that we saw he had beaten his beagle puppy to death. So the man got arrested for doing that. And so I was able to tell my daughter that the beagle puppy was fine. And he was just jumping all over everywhere, and he was flipping himself over and rolling around. He was so cute. He was so fat and cute. And I told her, I said, he's fine. He's okay. He's not suffering, and he doesn't remember it. He's okay. So that was huge for her. That was really a confirmation for her, or a helpful thing for her to know that, what, our pets do go to heaven, and they might suffer here just like we suffer sometimes here, but we're okay when we get there. We're okay.